Hello, you beautiful people, and welcome to the 6 Plus show. I am your host, Chris. I am unfortunately not Tom, I'm afraid. He was off being a fancy superstar representing Team England at the weekend at the Pirate Cup and having a wonderful time. And then once again, Nurgle got to him, and unfortunately, he's caught the plague. So it's over to me to tackle this most exciting of topics, because you may think you have an opinion on this, but we are here today to tell you are wrong. There is only one correct tier list in terms of what's the best army to collect. And it just so happens, you lucky people, that we know the answer. And we are going to tell you that answer today. And if you disagree with us, well, you're entirely welcome to your own opinion, but you are, of course, wrong. I am going to be joined by three other lovely chappies, and they are going to be telling you why you are wrong as well. So let's start off with Mr. Scrivo. How the devil are you, sir?
I am really good. Some might say far too good, and maybe a bit too caffeinated. So it might be the cup of tea that I necked just before the stream. It's got nothing to do with the fact that I have literally drank probably 5 cups of tea today and my feet are shaking. So
excellent.
Yeah,
so we have got a highly drugged up Mr. Scriven. So that's a ride in itself. And how has the world of Warhammer been treating you for the past week?
Well, I've been rebasing tons of Dark Angels, including the Lion, because I felt like Astral Granite was too boring. So now I'm doing Forest Walk bases. And I'm now speed painting 2 units of Ossiarch Bone Reapers, because I decided that rather than trying to paint a Stormcast army for the last 2 months, that I wouldn't paint anything for the teams event I'm doing next weekend. So I've realised I have to play the army I already own and needed just a couple of bits added to it. So dry brushing bone later after the show, but it'll be fine.
Sounds great fun for everyone involved. And Sharon obviously says we're starting off on the wrong foot by asking about 40k armies when Sigmar is the objectively superior game. Is he correct, Scrivo?
Well, it has sticky objectives, so maybe.
That's just the sort of sitting on the fence that I'm really excited about for this entire episode.
It's definitely a game that if you prefer playing just cavalry and with round bases, it's the game for you. If you like square bases and cavalry, you play in the old world.
Okay.
So
all I know about Sigmar is if you like rolling 4s and more 4s, then it's just the game for you, basically.
And if you've got health stats rather than wounds. And counting up.
They count the wrong way, though, don't they?
Oh, wow. I'm immediately out. Immediately.
I love it.
Lovely. Well, we've also got, you might have heard some crazy accent over in the corner. Rob.
Poor Alex.
I didn't even get a chance to speak yet.
Rob, how the devil are you, sir?
I'm really good. Went to an event a couple of weeks ago. Got to run something that wasn't Drukhari. So took some Vanguard Marines out for a spin. So that was good fun.
Love to hear it.
And
Power Armored Drukhari.
Power Armored Drukhari, it turns out. But I just played the same army style with a different army.
Yep.
I've done a heap of painting. So got a heap of painting for that done. Done some more in case I'm playing Marines in teams coming up. And I've painted my first Striking Scorpion.
And for those of you who can't see, because you're a podcast listener, what Rob just showed was a Striking Scorpion with a very smart upper green body and then no pants on.
They're just on the outside.
Yeah.
It's a really small green thong.
Rob has gone for a half and half scheme with the top green and the bottom white. Thoughts on a postcard on that? I think it's controversial, but it looks beautiful. So there's that.
So 40 aspect warriors to go out of boxes.
Absolutely. And Rob, obviously, as you said, did do that competition, and he's now such a master of Vanguard that he's gone and done a video on it. So that's going to be out in the near future.
Soon, yeah.
Very nice. And then finally, Mr. Alex, how are you?
Unlike Scrivo, I am tired. I got 4 hours of sleep last night, which might actually be more than yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I've not been sleeping that much recently. What was there a particular reason for this? For
no, just general, just general malaise, whatever. So
I thought there'd be more of a story. Right?
I'm going to blame the dog,
man. Come on, sort out. You needed to have some high, exciting story then. Okay, how's the world of Warhammer treating you? Have you done any hobbying?
I have just primed a Nagash for my brother. So,
So we're back on Sigmar
as well.
Okay, good.
Yep, this 40k podcast is getting off on the right note.
Yeah.
Sigmar.
So we should do a tier list of Sigmar and 40k and just have just the two.
Just the two.
Yeah.
Just boom. And then to have lots of arguments. Sounds Mr. Bold move. Excellent. Well, as for myself, I too have not had much sleep. I was on a residential. For those of you who don't know what residential is, it is where you take a bunch of, in this case, 9-year-olds away from their parents for probably the first time ever in their life, and try and deal with them not wanting to sleep and missing home. And it's they do some, skills and life learning and all that sort of thing, but mainly it's about the lack of sleep. And our school decided to have that at the very beginning of the week, straight after half term as well, with parents' evening this week as well. So I am tip top. I have, however, done some painting. I am now 3 deep into my Fellowship of the Rings. So I've done Gandalf, Pippin, and Boromir. And that is.
So you're Helm's Deep.
I am. Anyway, what we're now going to do is, apart from ignoring Scrivo, we're going to pop over to the chat because there are a lot of you in already, and you're all quite talkative, which is what we love. So here we go. Nurgle Matt, worth collecting whatever army your mum's interested in.
Thank God my mum was a Dark Angels main.
That's well-known fact there. Scrivo's mum is all about the Dark Angels. Raptor Jack, in a shocking turn of events, Space Marine Raptors. Who'd have thought it? He's already getting his vote in. We need a special shout out to Space Marine, to Raptor Jack, because popped into Discord today, and he's been boosting us. And I never even heard of this thing, but he has very kindly done a lot of boosting. And so all of a sudden, our Discord has got a few nice additional features that we're going to be trying to roll out in the near future. I say we, I mean Scrivo.
Yeah, it's already got a custom invitation link.
Oh, there we go. Oh, who doesn't want that? So if you're not on our Discord, go come join our Discord. Link in the comments. Ultimate Funk's here to trash talk. She's talking about Adeptus Titanicus. S tier, lovely. Hello, Gordy. Hello, Jerry's painting progress. Shirani, as we said, is talking about the wrong game. And we've got Dave, Ultimate Funk's excited for Hyper Scrivo mode. Can only go well. Pickaxian, hello, sir. Probably worth mentioning that Chris is a teacher. Yeah, if you didn't understand that, then you might be slightly concerned.
He's the villain from
I will tell one
Bang Bang.
I will tell one little story, which doesn't exactly paint me in the best light. But basically, so I was in my room on my own, and one of the other teachers was in the room next to me. She said she woke up about 2, could hear a child crying. And she was like, oh, what is that? Oh, another teacher can deal with it. And she thought, oh, no, I should get up. And she got out of her room and she walked past my door and then could hear the crying child coming from my bedroom. And she's there going, why is there a crying child in Chris's bedroom? And she's then off. She has a bit of a panic attack because this is slightly concerning, isn't it, really? Because obviously there is a potential for us as teachers that we might have to move a child into our room, but you'd obviously make sure the door's wide open. You told the other grown-ups, etc., etc. She's like, Chris has got the door shut. What on earth is he playing at? Oh, I don't know what to do here. I don't know what to do. And then she hears my snoring and then realizes that after I snore, I'm going... and my snoring sounds like a crying child. At which point she realised she was just stood outside my door, listening to me sleep, and relieved she went back to her room. So
my job. There
we are. There's quite a few stories that I'm building up where it paints me in a bad light as a teacher. So there we go. Anyway, back to the chat. Ultimate Fuss says, Tom, what Tom? You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Tom who? He's too good for us now. Vagrant asks, what do we think of the new EC leaks? Oh, well, maybe we'll get time to dabble now. In one word, Rob, EC leaks, go.
Haven't read them. Seen Fulgrim. Fulgrim looks absolutely amazing on GW terrain, but he'll die horribly to shooting.
Nailed it in one word. Smashed it. Scrivo, one word.
Flawless.
Oh, that was. He's nailed that one. Alex, no pressure. Can you do better?
Spiky, interesting. No, not one word. Wait.
You did better than me. It's all right.
I hope
could have said incomplete.
Opinions, guys.
Are we all ready for a 5-hour episode?
At this point, all of those who are watching this and waiting for us to start, they'll be commenting when they're watching this back, and they'll be like, "Oh no, they actually starts now, 36 minutes in." And this is the sort of thing where you should timestamp all the armies. Well, we're not going to do that. So if that's what you're hoping for, screw you.
No.
Just watch the whole thing, guys.
Yeah, just watch the whole thing. It's good for our advertising and our money. As he says, as a bad Eldar 1 trick, my opinions aren't very helpful. That's just as well, because you don't need opinions, because we're the only true facts that you need here. So before we dive in, we've been doing some videos recently. Go check them out. I can't bother to talk about them because there's only one thing I really want to talk about, which is our upcoming event. That is in 3 weeks now, pretty much 3-4 weeks, something like that.
Yep.
I don't know. 15th, 16th of March in Barnsley. There are 11 tickets remaining, and last count, we have got 9 things going into the goodie bag. 9 things. Like, I mean, is that not worth the ticket? I mean, it's not. Like, the money is under £65, but yes, a lot of goodies. There are some very good things in that goodie bag. Got a raffle with some pretty cool prizes in. Not a raffle, prize draw. Naughty. Not allowed to say raffle. Sorry, my bad. It's prize draw, which is definitely not a raffle, and you will potentially be winning some really nice things for not much money. And then obviously you get to play Warhammer, and you get to play on WTC terrain with WTC scoring. We're going to have it's live streamed by David from Glasshammer. It's going to be an incredible atmosphere, tons and tons of prizes. So yes, it's in Barnsley, but hey, nothing is perfect in life, and it just so happens that Prestige Wargaming is an incredible venue who are hosting it for us. So yeah, go over to our Facebook page and check it out. There's the event is on there, and it's just £65 to our PayPal, very easily paid for. And it'd be great to have those 11 people are out there right now. We've got a good WhatsApp group chat all about the event and everything. It's going to be a humdinger, guys. Drew, with the important questions, what display cabinets does Rob have in his background?
Oh, they are the old IKEA ones that you can't get anymore, unfortunately.
Detolf.
I wasn't going to try pronouncing it.
Detolf.
Yeah, they're really good. You get extra shelves for them, but you can't actually get them anymore.
You can't buy them. So
you can get extra shelves, but you can't buy the actual cabinets.
So there you are. If you want more recommendations from 6++, Rob is your guy. Excellent. Right. Anyway, enough of this chattering. Let's get on to the real topic, which is, of course, what is the best 40k army to collect? Now, you're probably aware that this is quite an open-ended topic, and one that is actually quite hard to focus down in terms of how to address it. So we're going to try. So this tier list that we are about to create is aimed at what we would define as maybe, possibly, we have no idea what the statistics are, the average 40k player. We're going to define the average 40k player as someone who plays once or twice a month and goes to 2 or 3 events a year. Likes their hobbying, has some interest in the storyline. It's just very general across the
subscribes to 6++ YouTube. You know?
Some would say
the average guy,
a bang average kind of person who enjoys this stuff. Now, obviously, when you're thinking about what makes the army the best army to collect, we're going to be addressing all sorts of things. So we're going to be thinking about the lore. We're going to be thinking about maybe the models, how good they are, how far-ranging is the datasheet examples? How easy is the army to pick up on the tabletop? How powerful is the army? And is there a link between those two things? Is it a nice, easy army to paint? All these things. Now, don't get me wrong, this episode could be 4 hours long if we deep dived every single one. So we're not going to. We're going to spread it out. We're probably going to talk more about the ones we're interested in. So sorry, Tyranid fans. I know you love to hate us, but you know we will talk about you. Don't worry. Might have a quick fire round.
We are missing our Tyranid main.
We are missing our Tyranid main.
Yeah, JP's
sorry,
David.
So, yeah, we might have a quick fire round where I'll give everyone 30 seconds and Rob will take 3 minutes because apparently he's that sort of guy.
One word.
We'll go from there. But as you can probably tell, it's not necessarily going to be the most serious thing. But we're going to give you a whole host of interesting information on opinions because, well, let's face it, we do get around a bit. We are a bit slutty. We have had quite a few armies, so we do kind of know quite a lot of the armies and that sort of thing, and how easy it is to collect. But it's going to be entertaining, and at the end of the day, it is the only opinion that counts. So you just need to remember that, and don't forget that in your comments. Pickaxe says, my hopes are high because Jack isn't here to dumpster Eldar. I have absolutely no idea what you mean. That is what we would call slander. And if you would like to contribute to the defense of Jack and his slanderous nature and this slanderous accusation, then feel free to super chat for our lawyer fees. Thank you very much. Anyway, I'm now going to share my screen. So hold tight, podcast listeners, as I put that on and then press this button. Ta-da! And then I'll scroll up slightly.
Oh my goodness.
What a thing of beauty. So, S, A, B, C, D. So, D tier, definitely don't ever collect this army unless you're a madman. There might be one reason or something to do that. S tier, you should every person should own this army. Will anything make S tier? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't even know what armies I'm going to be talking about yet, let alone my opinions on them. That's what the high quality people do. And then A, B, C obviously work their way down. So I'd be thinking in A tier, the army is a very good army to collect, one that is going to appeal to a wide variety of people and have a lot of strengths to it. B is going to be that above average, realistically. It's a nice army for a variety of reasons. And C is, it's okay, but not that fussed. Okay? So, to begin with, let's pretend to take this seriously. So, let's start off with Alex. You're a sensible chap. Pick one of these armies and tell us whether you think they're a good army or not to collect on why.
So we're going to start with the army that I started with in the hobby first, I think, and that would be the Necrons.
Oh, interesting.
Now, if you'd asked me this about 5 or 6 years ago, they'd have been slightly further down, but they got a lovely range refresh. They've got a good deep collection of models in there. And at the end of the day, it's also just a bucket of silver and a dry brush if you don't want to go too crazy.
100%.
So I think it scores pretty highly on ability to kind of get it painted quickly into a decent level. You'd say you've got a wide model range there. You can go in a number of directions. It's not pigeonholed into a certain playstyle. You can, of course, go aggressive melee. You can sit back, play guns. You have nonsense uppy downies. And it is also pretty good in the meta right now. There's a few builds that will hold up. So I think Necrons go into A tier.
I mean, you haven't said anything bad. So why not S tier?
I think that there's not a lot of conversion opportunities. There's not a huge kind of range. You're not likely to be able to get a lot of like iconic heraldry personality into it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost there, but it is a very good option.
Okay, everyone else?
It can be quite affordable too, because they were in a launch box and in a magazine series. There's a lot of it going around secondhand cheap.
Yeah, I think if you were trying to create a new army and you followed the Necron blueprint, I think you've kind of nailed it. Wide range of sheets, a wide range of play styles, easy to paint. As you say, probably the one limiting factor is maybe someone who really wants to push their painting or really go to town with that sort of aspect. That's actually really hard to do. It doesn't necessarily lend itself. The models aren't the most incredible. They fulfill a theme really well, but barring that, they are actually they're generally quite strong. But yeah, they're in terms of a beginner army, they've surely got to be right up there as one of the very best. So that's a very strong start there from Mr. Alex. Scrivo, what's your choice, sir?
I'm going to go with Imperial Knights. Okay. And I'm going to suggest that they're probably not the most ideal to pick up because they're expensive. So the main unit itself is locked behind a £110 multi-option kit, which in itself is very complicated. As a paint scheme, if you're doing it by the book, it's a lot of heraldry, mixed color panels. Currently in the game, they're okay. They've done all right recently in some events, but they're not the most intuitive. So, like, if you're trying to start out, we had a guy locally playing in our 1500 point league. He took Imperial Knights at that scale, and smaller games, if you're trying to learn the game, it's awful because you have a handful of models and they just don't have that variety. Yes, there is like something stupid like 15 data sheets across the faction. They're all just variations of the same unit, which is a little bit there's 3 sizes of knights, but they are all very samey if you're trying to build and paint them. There is some conversion possibilities, there is some Forge World, but how long is that going to last for? So I personally think they're kind of D tier because it's just
not that we always shit on knights. However,
I love knights, but I just don't think they're great to collect.
Doesn't matter what we do. Imperial Knights D tier. There you go, guys. So if you like big
to them quite a lot,
robots, don't do it. Don't do it, guys. Do not collect Imperial Knights. That is a statement of fact and truth for everyone. Rob, let's hear another statement of fact and truth.
Let's go for Death Guard.
Nice,
so, like that one.
Death Guard, I think, very, very similar to the Necrons. They had the 8th edition launch, and they had a whole heap of range refreshes, and the models are pretty amazing. If zombies and disease things are your shout, and I think the lore and the playstyle, it matches really well. There is a lot of things you can read about them. They're in a lot of stories. I've never been a Death Guard fan really, but towards the end of the Horus Heresy, which I'm listening to at the moment, there's a lot with Mortarion. I'm actually starting to come around, and the whole story between Mortarion and Typhus is actually really quite cool.
Don't talk to me about Typhon. Such a loser.
Typhus. I think they're a really solid army. They are hard to play at the top level because they are so slow. But I think as a pickup army, you can just walk forward with them.
They're really easy to play, to be fair. Any mug. Didn't see there, Aidan.
They're resilient, right?
They're
quite forgiving, right?
They move towards the middle, just get shot, die slowly, win the game. Begin to
puke all over objectives, done.
No playing needed at all. So what?
I think they're a solid middle of the road because they are the models are great, the lore is great. I think they're let down by, as we say, you do just push them into the middle, but they are so slow that to play them well is actually really quite difficult. As much as we joke. I think they're a solid B tier. They're in the middle of the road. If you like the models, go for it, and you will learn how to play them.
Cool, solid B tier. Hope you're happy with that, Aidan. So boom, mark that over there. So that we'll just quickly dive into the chat because it's popping off again. No one's told us we're 100% wrong yet, which is just as well because that would make them wrong. Vic's here says bottom of D tier for the Knights. Vic shares a fellow opinion of Knights as we do. I think it would be fair to say. Excited to hear how you get on at Manchester, Vic. Don't let Ynnari down, please. Misfit says conversion and kit bashing is the number one cause of army expansion for me. I think that's such an important point, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people is actually how can I make this army interesting and exciting using the core of the identity of the army. Good point from Disgustingly Resilient podcast saying Imperial Knights won't make you friends as a new player showing up at a new player club night either. No, exactly. It takes a certain army list or type of play to be able to get around that sort of thing at lower points. What be easy army to learn the game with, as I view Space Marines, is learning Miss Army. Well, those are some words in a sentence. We will
teach you guys.
We will. I think probably maybe we'll save Space Marines towards the later part of the show, just because I think that's quite an interesting discussion one.
I can stop whenever I want.
Aidan says, you play Death Guard because you want to look at your opponent in the face and say, despite you having every trick, movement, nonsense in the game, I still fucking beat you. There we are. Look at that. And boom, still doesn't get you out of B tier, though. For my army choice, I'll pick up one of my first armies, the one that I played first of all, which is Custodes when I got into 40k in 8th. Now, what have they got going for them? Well, they're low model count. So, it's quite easy to pick up an army going there. In terms of painting, you can obviously just spray them Retributor Gold and give them a wash and bosh, job done. But at the same time, you can obviously go full non-metallic metal, or you can do a lot of wonderful stuff with the different color schemes. You've got shadow keepers, like that wonderful black, red and gold scheme. So there's lots of potential there, but also they can be tackled in quite a safe way. In terms of playing them, they are varied, shall we say, in terms of it depends when in the meta. Because let's face it, there are various points in my career as a 40k player where they have been busted. They have been the best army in the game. Let's face it. There was when I first started playing, it was all jet bikes. Jet bikes were one of the best armies in the game. One LGT.
Oh, I remember those days.
Those were good days. I still have 15 of them. And fun fact, Scrivo was my first ever tournament game, and I ran lots of Custodes jet bikes with Hurricane Bolters. On an open table, and Scrivo had lots of Orks, and all the Orks died. It was fun. Because I just sat there and rolled a billion Hurricane Bolter shots. It took a lot of skill. Now, then we obviously had, was it 9th edition, where they had that moment where everyone was angry about the new book coming out, and then it dropped and turned out it was incredibly strong.
People couldn't read.
Then we've had units of 10 Wardens and Guard running around the table. We've got Solar Spearhead, not broken at all at the moment, but putting up decent results. So they are an army that pisses everyone off because 4-ops be 4-ops, right? And we've all done it. I've been the Custodian player where I have failed all my 4-ops and I just lost because I failed my 4-ops. But at the same time, as an opponent, you're like, well, how much do I need to put into this one unit? Because I know the average is he makes one save and fails one save, but this could quite easily spike the wrong way, and that causes a lot of issues. Now, I think we probably should address one of the main issues with collecting Custodes is that their models they have in terms of pure Games Workshop is not that great. And actually, if you want to get a lot of the flavor and character into a Custodes army, you have to go to Forge World or your nearest 3D printer. So that is a cause for issue. Now, I've got the chat here trying to influence me. Ian saying that Custodes are C tier because it's all infantry except for bikes or Forge World units. Vagrant comes straight in with D tier because Forge World. So that is an interesting one, isn't it?
And they're not as newbie friendly because yes, they're elite, but if you misplay them, you can be really punished.
Absolutely, they can be tough. It depends a lot on where they are at the time in the meta. But sometimes it is just better to be lucky than good and just roll those 4-ups, and you can do that. So I think this is a tough one. I'm not as harsh a critic as Vagrant, so I'm going to move them to C tier. I think there are I think they have some appeals to them as a starter army, and I know some people hate them, but I actually quite like that lore and that aspect of them, and just those being those little heroes on the tabletop. I wish in some way the rules encaptured that a bit more.
Yeah.
I don't feel like I'm wielding when you've got a little 4-man guardian unit, right? I don't feel like I'm currently wielding 4 absolute heroes that could take on an army by their own. I'm like, I failed a 4-up and now I've lost 1 model. Excellent. So yeah, it is a shame with that regard, but they're a very hard army to bounce. So yeah, I'm going to whack them in C tier. All right. Aidan chimes in with Custodes D tier. Had a local player swap from Custodes to Eldar. It's hilarious watching him wonder why his T3Ls can't stand him. Yeah, they're not very good at that. John C says Death Guard should be higher because they have Aiden as a resource. Same with World Eaters and Dara. We don't like brown noses and suck ups in the chat unless it's for us. So sorry, John, you now need to say something about us before I can allow you to carry on talking. But actually, interesting, we do have a podcast question about that and how important is it that there are good content creators out there for your army. I think that's a really interesting question we'll cover at the end. But yes, of course, Death Guard, armies like Death Guard who have dedicated, wonderful YouTube channels such as the Disgustingly Resilient podcast. That makes a big difference and is something we should probably be including. Absolutely. Right, this round is going to be a quick fire round. You only have 30 seconds to discuss this army. Okay? And I'm going to hit the random generator on who it's going to go to. Ooh, beep, 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 beep. Scrivo, 30 seconds, go.
Imperial Guard, if you just like toy soldiers and tanks and you're quite boring, you just want to paint green toy soldiers, done. So really quite straightforward. If you just want to be the vanilla guys, it's somewhere kind of between B and C, I would say.
Cool, well, you need to pick one.
I want to say top of C, because at least they've got a bit more variety than the Custodes.
Top of C tier. Now that is a bold call. Yeah. You've gone straight. You've gone for a quick fire round. You've picked one of the biggest factions, and you said they're only C tier. You probably shouldn't start with them. Alex, is he right or wrong?
I don't think he's right with the Guard. I think you've got lots of options there, but I think if we jump to Chaos Knights, I think they go into B tier. What if the Imperial Knights had other options and more modelling opportunities? You can do some crazy things, and they're still in a good place. You can run a big knight and still feel okay with it.
Nice. Above or below Death Guard?
We'll go below. I think Death Guard are wider choices.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Rob, 30 seconds, go.
Tau. So I think that they are bad for new players, and they've got quite old kits across the board. They are good to play with your Gundam robots, though. That is quite cool. I think they're around a C tier because it's old kits. The lore is kind of a bit flat for me, and you're a monophase army, so you're not going to learn the game properly.
All controversial. All Tau players are shit. There we go. Hot takes for you. That's exactly what Rob says. I'm not paraphrasing at all. So where on C tier, though?
I think between Guard and Custodes.
Between Guard and Custodes.
They have more kits than Custodes.
Boom. I'm going to go for Imperial Agents. Don't do it. The end. D tier. Because they're not really an army. We've all heard the story of. No, they're not real. And we've heard the story of a guy who went to Games Workshop, got recommended that army, and then found out he couldn't replay it. So there we go. Scrivo is now preparing himself to be told he's wrong about the Guard. Pickalax is the first one to tell Scrivo he's wrong.
Yeah, well,
as much as I personally agree Guard are boring, they've been excellent competitively for so long, have a big range, and largely their models are nice. And yeah, you are right. They have a lot of wonderful things going for them as a first army to start. In fact, including the fact they're also very strong. But Scrivo said this, and Scrivo is right, as we've already told you all we are. Yep. This is the tier list. So sorry, Pickalax, but your opinion doesn't count.
If you want to paint something that's a different regiment, you really struggle these days because they just don't give you the options unless it's Krieg. And no one wants Krieg.
Also, some of the kits are crazy old.
Yeah.
Right. Anyway, now we can pick one we actually care about. Rob, go.
Okay, let's go to my first and main army, Drukhari. Can you just throw them straight in D tier, please, as an army to collect? What? Because
how many units can you buy currently, Rob?
So I think there is 14 data sheets, and you can't buy 6 of them because they're in range rotation. So you can't buy the army. They
that is a slight flaw.
Notoriously hard to use, and they're easy to lose with. I think there's about a dozen, maybe a dozen players in the UK who play them well, and they've got some great conversion opportunities, which does push them up, but a lot of the time when you play them, you're playing to not lose and not to win, and it is a bit of a slog at times. It's the new detachments really do help, and they are fun. The new Reapers detachment is great fun, but it is hard work to make them work. And I think that, along with very hard to get kits, puts them right down the bottom. They are great fun, but you have to dedicate yourself to them completely.
That's really interesting. So yeah, I would never have considered it, but yeah, all those points. They make sense. And obviously, you are the guru on Drukhari, so.
And if you like pain, go with the pain elves, right?
Exactly. So yeah, sad times, because obviously they have had their moment. If we'd done this tier list a couple of years ago, it would probably be a very different proposition.
I'd have been throw them in the pen.
I think it's one of the things as well with their competitive standpoint. They are either amazingly good or shit. They're on that weird knife point of being too good or too bad. And
sometimes they just have too much stuff.
Really quickly.
If they have too much stuff and their output's good enough, we've seen how that can cause such issues, right? But when their output isn't good enough or they don't have enough stuff, they're in a bad place. And there are some armies, just the nature of the game, I guess, that they are either too strong or just nowhere near. That it's very hard to find that middle ground for. Interesting, right? Alex, what are you going to go with, sir?
We're going to smash something into the S tier. I think it's going to be
my word,
Chaos Space Marines.
Here we go. That's what we like.
A wide variety of kits. They usually have a very good build to play with. The lore is quite interesting. It's kind of wide. You've got so many options for modeling on there. I think they do a bit of everything. They're just, and as an army, you can take it any direction you want as well. They do everything as a good army to collect, good army to paint, easy to procure models, and usually reasonable on the tabletop.
One counterpoint: gold fucking trim.
Don't trim the different color to the armor.
I mean, literally on our group chat today, Ben Pritchard sent a picture of his EC model, and he did not. He's just airbrushed it. He's not painted the trim. Doesn't need to be done, does it? David Jones comes in with the counterpoint. CSM have to be D tier. Painting them is impossible for new players.
Yeah.
So just don't paint them. Just airbrush them. Don't worry about that.
Paint them like the
3
rest
colors
of them.
done.
Ed Watts, his Space Marine army, black with a bit of orange, yellow OSL. Legions of the Damned. Boom, completed it.
Sure.
Looks absolutely just like Legions of the Damned. Interesting. Let's just chip back into the chat. Who've got opinions? How dare they? Guard was so good for so long. I remember when every Imperium list had 32 of them. Yes, the Loyal 32, the Castellan, Knight Castellan, the Blood Angel Smash Captains. What time to be alive.
And some bikes, those stupid jet bikes with them as well.
Yeah, Shield Captain bikes.
It's fine.
Unkillable.
Then 30 scouts to back them up with sniper rifles.
Oh, I had a good time. It was a fun time.
No.
And Drukhari have to have the best models that no one wants to play. It's a sad tale.
It's fun. You just have to commit yourself.
Yeah, I think that's it. More Space Marine lieutenants than Drukhari has data sheets. That is a sad state of affairs. Dark Elder is for people who enjoy elves but want to have daddy issues with Games Workshop ignoring them over Craftworks. That's summed up nicely by Disgusting and Brazilian.
Or poorly.
Drukhari is just a sub-faction for Ynnari now. Ynnari are pretty great. Ian says, just spray your CSM gold, contrast the panels, done. There you go. And George Huntley, Chaos will also get a load of cheap marine vehicles when they all get legends. There we go. So, we have got our first S-tier army. Scrivo, what's your next controversial take?
So, I'm going to go with Orks. That's my first army I started with. And I'm actually going to put them at the bottom of C tier.
Orks at the bottom of C tier for a new player.
Because they've got a lot of units, which actually I think can be a hindrance, because there's a lot to buy and paint.
I hate having too many choices of things to buy.
It's almost too much at times.
Yeah, sounds nice.
And quite often with the edition swings, you can have something that was good for one edition, the next edition, dog shit. It seems to be kind of almost like the whole kind of rotating it through to paint even just the normal battle line units, especially the newer sculpts. They've got so many little teeth, things hanging off, all these little glyphs. It's a lot to paint, especially for a new person. And some of their kits are quite old now. There's some really nice new stuff, but then some of that nice new stuff has been up and down. So like the buggies, almost unplayable at the moment. Real shame. Something like a Stomper, really cool if you're a new player or really wanting to expand your range. Awful. Like, it's got so many duds in the codex. There is some really cool stuff, and it's really playable, really competitive at the moment. But if you don't own the right bits, you're basically not playing the army at that point. And that's a shame.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because like, you compare them to something like Necrons, right? You know, similarly large, wide range stuff. You've got older sculpts and newer sculpts there, but you take like the Necron book, and it's just got so many different things you can do with it, and a lot of it is approach is usable. Whereas you take the Orks, and there's seems to only ever seem to be able to be like one given.
They've got a couple of good detachments at the moment. Like, a lot of the detachments rely specifically on a unit type, and those unit types aren't very good, or the thing it gives those units. So like the Big Hunt, it's playable if you really go into the right matchup, but it gives you a lot less than the other detachments that are quite playable, which is a shame.
I'm going to go for Adeptus Mechanicus. Now, they're an interesting one, aren't they? They are, I think, point for point, the most expensive army in the game, which is not a great start. It is a bit of a joke how expensive they are to buy them. Isn't that right? So Ed's just joined in the chat, mouthing off about Necrons, but Ed has also just recently bought an entire Admech army. So
in one purchase, completely healthy, right?
And he's trying to build it and paint it all at the same time, because Ed is literally mental. Ed also says Admech should be E tier. I just bought 3,000 of them.
Is that pounds or points?
Yeah, it's the same. Literally, it is identical. I started collecting Admech when the book in 9th edition was on the horizon. We actually, Liam and myself, did a little series from grey to greatness, tracking our progress. We should bring that back. That was quite good fun. He did Slanesh Demons. I did Admech. And I spoke
how those armies doing.
They're going really well. Really well. Obviously, then the Admech book came out and was incredibly broken. And if anyone wants to buy some Admech planes, then just let me know. Drop me a message. I've got a few of them. They're really good.
They're the bomb.
They are. Anyway, so in terms of on the tabletop, they're an interesting one because they are actually quite strong. It just so happens no one really wants to do it. Also, you've got Johnny Simmons in the UK who's putting up some serious results with them. They have that fact that they have some pretty good rules and just 1 billion models. And if you just lean into certain things, they can be an absolute nightmare to play in, especially if they go first and just lock your opponent in the deployment zone for the whole game. In terms of transporting the army around, it breaks a lot. Don't look too closely at my pictures when I take them when I'm trying to sell my Admech army, and we'll be okay. In terms of painting, they're okay. They're not amazing to paint, but they're not awful to paint either. You've got a variety of different units there. I just think if we're talking about in terms of a starter army or someone who's like, should they collect Admech, it's really hard to justify recommending them. Mainly because just it's going to take you so long and so much money just to get into them. You have to kind of be prepared to like maybe put in lots of reps on TTS, build up your army idea, your list, and then go and do it that way. So I'm going to have to put them in D tier, I'm afraid, which does make me sad. Because I did spend a good few months with them whilst they were good.
That sounds really bad on you, man. I enjoyed playing them when they were good.
To be fair, I'll be honest, I actually did not enjoy playing them even when they were good. I was like, I'm really sorry for what I'm about to do to you, but I wasn't actually.
Is that after your 15 minutes explaining your command phase?
Yeah, I used to have all these cards, and eventually what you worked out was actually just slap all the cards on like the same unit or two. And you just basically like, look, just trust me, bro. Like it was just so much. It is pointless me explaining all of the things this unit is able to do.
Just did everything.
Just trust me. If you think of a rule, it can do it. Cool. Don't bother shooting it. Have fun. Oh, you're dead. Cool. Right. Let's do another speed round. So maybe pick something you don't care about as much. And we're going to start with Scrivo this time. 30 seconds, sir. Go.
Chaos Demons are in the D tier because are they an army? Aren't they an army? Are they part of the god factions or not? We don't know. Are they getting all their data sheets? Apparently not. So this means they're not even part armies going into the codexes now. So what's the point of collecting them? You may as well just put them in Age of Sigmar where they belong, which is also D tier.
Come at us, Chaos Demon fans. Bring it.
Oh, sorry, Franco. I love you, really.
Scrivo's opinions are that of his own and do not represent 6++ as a demon group. Lovely. Demons, D tier, smashed it. Okay, Rob, what are you saying?
Let's go Sisters. So amazing sculpts, super detailed, which is amazing for painting, horrible for everything else. I think the lore and the army mechanics are bang on. Like, they really capture what the army's meant to be. So I think with a quick one there, I think they are just above Admech in C tier because of the not gameplay mechanics side, but more the hobby side, because they are really beautiful models.
So where are we going, sorry?
Next on the other side of Admech, between Custodes and
Admech are in D tier.
Oh, sorry. Who's that next to them?
So here we've got Orks.
Orks, yeah, between Orks and Custodes. Yeah, it's good.
Nice. Yes, the painting of them is a nightmare, and obviously the way their rules are, it seems to be they're either too good or not good enough.
Yeah.
But they are very, and I think it should probably be mentioned, as stereotypical as it is, obviously there aren't many female players in 40k, and the fact that that is realistically the only army that represents female players is quite often a lot of
Tyranids represent them.
Obviously, Tyranids
is the thing.
It is a thing. You're right, but in general, in terms of human females, so they can actually be a bit of a draw for. I do know women who've got into it because of that. So, Alex, over to you, sir.
GSC can get straight to D tier. Like the army rules just been mucked around so often. You need 1 million models that are all basically the same. Like, there's not a lot going on there. You need to be a savant to actually get something out of them other than the Biosanctic.
Not you, Tom.
Run at someone. And who knows? They're probably going to get a complete reset of how their army works in the next edition as well, because this style hasn't suited them.
They've tried so many things, haven't they? Yeah. They're an army with a lot of flavour, potentially, and I think full credit to GW for usually being quite risky, giving them a rule which nothing else has, right? Like, we've all seen the advance and charge, fall back and charge.
Last edition Crossfire was a really interesting mechanic once you'd got your rulers and your trigonometry out.
Yeah. And we had the blips, obviously, and now we've got them respawning. So they always do try something with GSC, and I think that's to be applauded. It's just inherently going to cause issues because it's going to be something that's really hard to balance. And you've got to paint a lot of models.
With a lot of detail.
I mean, I also tried to preempt in 8th edition. I was listening to a podcast, and it was someone who'd been to a tournament. They'd just beaten GSC, but it was like, they've got some really good stuff, man. Like, their range is about to come out. I think GSC are going to be amazing. And I decided to take the word of that one person, because you should always listen to people on the internet. And I went and basically mass bought GSC. Then the book came out, and in 8th edition, and it was fucking good. It was really good. Unfortunately, I was not playing the army. And I remember going to Battlefield Birmingham with 35 units in my army because I went for and essentially, you had to put your blips down, and then you had to deploy on your blips, and then you had got to turn 2, and then you had 17 units that you could drop down from Deep Strike. And it as someone of my play style who likes to analyze all the options, that wasn't fair to me or my opponent. And there was this one game.
Later.
There was one guy I played, Adam Ryland, is it, from Wales?
Yeah.
And he was running Ynnari, and he had never played Ynnari before. And he had a giant sheet of like 20 spells he was trying to cast and stuff. I was trying to work out where to deploy my army and then deep strike it down to, and we got to turn 2. And after that tournament, I was like, I don't want this army anymore. This is not for me. So I fully agree with this this D-tier thing. But I also do remember it taking forever just to paint some hybrids, neophytes. Like, it's like, why am I spending
beautiful models though?
I need 80 of these. Why am I? They are very nice.
Great. Lore is great, but just don't collect it.
Yeah. Sorry, guys. Now, our D tier is looking quite full. As Aidan points out, what this tier list has taught me so far is best army to collect, don't.
We're just obsessed with the D.
Yeah, that too. So
Tier.
going back
to we can bump a couple things up here.
Yeah, we'll analyse this again after.
We'll recalibrate once we've got all the data.
We'll have a second draft after.
We're not emotional people.
We've still got another 3 hours to go. Don't worry. Strap yourselves in. Raptor Jack says, feels like AdMech is a good one-trick army due to time investment, playing and painting cost, fragile units as well. And Gary P says, just popped in to say, answer the question, is Alpha Legion? We can be anything power armoured. Hail Afaris. We can neither
Alpha Legion Sisters of Battle. That's weird.
All 4 of our teams are Alpha Legion named related for teams. So we do like
why?
Alpha Legion. Why? Because I like turquoise. And I like Alpha Legion. But also, it was a cool 2 names, wasn't it? Alpharis and Omegon. And then we just expanded from that. But yeah, I'm a big fan of Alpha Legion. Other than that, GSC should be Necromunda only range from Donald Cowie. Controversial.
They played really well in Necromunda as a gang.
There we go. Good to know. We've covered Necromunda, Middle Earth, and Sigma. So we're doing well.
They were a bit too good in Kill Team.
Were they? Oh, we are. Nailed. Now Kill Team as well.
There you go. Just covering all bases, guys.
Covering all the bases. And then Nightbot's still here. We all love Nightbot. Right, it's my go, innit? Quickfire one. That's what we're on. so tempted to do Tyranids. Just I'm not going. Don't worry, guys. Votann. Okay, Votann. I don't care about Votann. So Votann don't have much of a range. Painting them takes longer than you would hope. Their rules mechanics seem to just rely on blowing up the opponent. They're not quite massively resilient. They're honest 40k. They've got some nice combat. You can go down the vehicle skew, and that's kind of it. I would imagine it's quite hard to play like an infantry only Votann army. But are they a good start point? They don't really have any lore either.
They've got 1 novel.
They don't have much history to them. Painting is meh. They only play in one way. It's not sounding great.
And if you're anti-AI, they are literally led and bred by an AI. So
they've got a small range, which I think can, to an extent, be an advantage, right? Like, if you want to pick up a Votann army, you're not struggling for a huge amount of units. Yeah. So I'm going to put them near the bottom of C tier, just because I think that, in terms of starting, I think you can get to 2k pretty quickly and effectively. So there we are. Right. So what have we got left? Well, for the podcast listeners, we've got Aeldari. Oh, we've got Space Marines of all sorts. We've got Thousand Suns, Nids, World Eaters. So, Alex, sir, what are you saying?
Let's take the Tyranids. So I think, there's a wide range of models, but none of them really are that new. Like, we got the Leviathan set, but it didn't actually release that many models, so they're all quite a lot of them are still the old kits. Saying that, you can smash a load out. The contrast paints go on nicely to them. There is always a build, available for you if you're kind of looking to get a decent competitive game in, but you're going to get so bored painting them so fast. Like you're doing the same thing on every single model the whole way round, regardless of its size.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's probably around B tier in the end. You got many options, and yeah, I think you'll have fun with it.
Where in B tier? Bottom, middle,
Bottom
top?
of B.
Bottom of B tier. Interesting. Okay. We have been harsh, haven't we? Right, Rob, over to you.
Let's go for Vanilla Marines.
Yes, Vanilla Marines. Now, we've had people chipping in, and I think this is an interesting one because I think you could interpret Marines in one of two ways. So, what's your opinion, and therefore the fact, Rob?
The facts. So, Marines are slated as the starter army.
Yes.
Which
S tier. Okay.
Which I agree with if all of your mates want to play Marines. Because they're all got the same stat lines. There's Gravis Armor, there's Tactical Armor, and they have the same stat lines. They have slightly different guns. It's easy to pick up the basics of the game. They've got some combat, they've got some shooting. It's good to learn how the game works. The problem is they have so many fucking data sheets.
Yep.
The size of the book is just absolutely ridiculous, and there's so many options and so many detachments. What we've got is 8 detachments in the core book with all the Grotmus ones and everything. Then you've got all the supplements. There's another 12 additional detachments or something silly. So there is too many options for the average player to go, what do I want to play and how can I do it well? And if something changes, do I need an entire new army to change how I play? Because they are specialized in what they do. So I like it from a starter point of view when you're learning with friends, but if you want to get into competitive, I think they drop way down the tiers just for the accessibility and the costs and the hobby time. So where are we going to go? I am actually really enjoying. I've just started with them properly, and I would actually put them probably high in B. I would probably put them. Do we go A? Because it's just accessible.
Yeah, it's accessible. You look at it as Primaris only as well. You cut out a huge chunk of the old data sheets. If you go, look, it's going to be Primaris.
That's exactly how I've approached my hobby with them. It is Primaris, and you accept that you're going to either play not meta, and just play the way that you want to, and you don't have to cycle then. And like we talked about in our video that we recorded, John, that's coming out this week, it's all viable. It's not top tier viable, but it's viable no matter which way you want to play it.
And every 3 years you get a new wave of stuff that you'll get in a cheap box, and it'll be okay. You'll get to play most of it. I don't think I've ever had a release box since 8th edition where I've not used a unit eventually.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. I think my thought process is, Space Marines, that's your starter army. Obviously, that goes at the top. And then, so actually, I collected Marines. I bought a bunch of Marines. I had like 3,000 points of Marines. And then the new book came out, and I couldn't play any of it because none of it was actually any good. So I'm like, well, actually, you know what? They've got too many choices. They're not a good army to start with. You don't know where to start. Put them in D tier. And then I go up to the middle ground, which is actually, if we're taking our average player, Marines aren't an easy army if you are one of those who wants to be trying to chase the meta, because the thing is always changing. But for the person who just, let's face it, I think probably, this is a massive just shot in the dark here, but I would say people are more passionate about their Space Marine chapter than other people are about like their particular like armies and stuff. Like, people really do like being whatever, Blood Angel, Space Wolves, etc., or making their own. Like, that's a big thing. You don't get anywhere near as many people who are super excited about their own custom Necron chapter or whatever, or Dynasty,
they're like, I'm a High Fleet Leviathan player.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, compared what colour's that?
Making their own custom Marine chapter. You see lots of people do that. Lots of conversions. An easy army to paint. That's, and teach yourself things like edge highlighting and that sort of thing. So, I think I do think actually, in weird reflection, A is actually a good shout. Alex, do you?
Yeah, I agree with the Space Marine. Shall we move on to another army? I think, do we diverge out and say, let's go for Space Wolves? So we almost diverge.
Yeah.
I think Space Wolves is an interesting one. The range is getting very tired as a set of models.
Yeah.
There hasn't been a new release for ages. A lot of their own specific units very much love it or hate it. I think there's lots of really great lore out there, some great novels. They kind of do pick up on that Viking theme, which people love, and they can just sit back on the laurels of being Space Marines still. I think they'd go top end of B here. I think you'll have a good time.
Have a good time with the
just
wolves.
Don't buy anything older than Primaris. That's all I would say. And that applies to any Space Marines, really.
Yeah.
So where in B2 again?
We'll go between the Death Guard and the Chaos Knights.
Nice. Lovely, lovely.
30k Space Wolves are so cool too.
Yeah.
The route is amazing.
Yeah. And the really nice belts, the champion belts they're wearing.
Yeah.
So,
Girdles.
shout out to Gordy. In the time this show's been on, which at this time recording is 1 hour, 1 minute, I've painted the armor panels of 1.5 Chaos Space Marines. S tier, baby. Scrivo.
So, I'm going to get in there before anyone else tries to be kind of factually incorrect. And I'm going to tell you about a really brilliant army called Dark Angels. So they had a massive range refresh this edition. They've only got a couple of old kits. They get access to all the cool toys of the vanilla guys. But you get this really cool thing where you can put heads on that aren't just a helmet, but they've got a hood. And if you just don't want to paint so much armor panels, you can put fabric on them. They can be wearing robes. So they are basically B-tiered, but just above Space Wolves because they've clearly won the duel.
Yeah.
Somewhere between, like, it's the Lion and the Wolf, and the Lion always wins. So
just above.
And for the last 3 editions, their Terminators have been incredibly playable, and you always want to take
incredibly playable. We say in quote marks.
We all love playing Paul James. It's great.
Everyone loves Deathwing Knights. Yeah, there's not ever an issue when you play them. Yeah,
I've never seen them Terminators as not Deathwing Knights, really, have you? It's always that or not Dark Angels.
Yeah. Well, there was a time where it was like what was the land speeder which Overwatched on 2s?
Oh, the
Talonmaster.
Yeah.
I missed my 3.
That was fun. Yeah, that was great. Oh, you
never actually had a real model
on 2s. Oh, and you've got unkillable Terminators. Really on 4s? Fuck off, Paul.
Don't worry, I'm being backed up by my 25 Desolation Marines behind that wall.
Yeah, we all love Dark Angels. Very good. I'm going to take the risk here. I'm going to do it. I'm going to dive into Aeldari.
Every tier.
Every single damn tier.
It was fated to be so, right?
Where's the mute button?
Hang on, I'll press it for you.
I've been God's sake. I have been collecting for like a couple of years now, and they've obviously got a really wide range.
There we go.
They've just got a huge amount of options. They have the fact that they can and usually are pretty strong, but I'll come back to that in a moment. Painting wise, Donald says here, as painting and modelling army, Eldar are A, but in unskilled hands, Eldar can be painful nightmare to play because it win big or crash and burn. There's no middle ground. I mean, they've got great models, right? And certainly got new ones out.
Yeah.
And you know, they're one of the main factions, right? So they're always going to be getting things. As someone looking to collect an army, it's hard to say don't do it. The only issue is that they are usually hard to play. Now, don't get me wrong. There obviously have been times in history where they have been the most broken thing. Look at the start of 10th. There have been, even in 9th edition, we had Hail of Doom, was it? Which was just like scything down people. Ynnari in like 8th,
7th, 8th, 9th, and probably 10th now.
Ynnari have been times where their rules, they've got a very cool faction identity and style, but their rules have been a bit preposterous. So the issue is that when they're middle ground, when they don't have these super broken combinations. They're an incredibly hard army to use, which obviously is therefore off-putting to someone who's maybe not playing them as often, because you need to be playing quite regularly to learn their tricks and learn how to best utilize them, because they're just so fragile. They are that glass that glass cannon type army, and it can just cause problems. A lot of people are the sort of players who just like to move the models around. They don't want to spend their time at hiding, but they do the tenets of the game well. They're very fast, very maneuverable. They can pick apart a certain part of the board. So yeah, I think they've got their pros and cons really, which is what you kind of want in terms of that sort of thing. So I'm going to put them in B tier because I think they've got enough weaknesses that they aren't as necessarily viable as a collecting an army as someone like Necrons or Space Marines. I would say at the moment, just highlight the point that I think their current book is phenomenal. In terms of, I read every detachment, I'm like, this looks fun to play. And in at least half those detachments, you're not necessarily, obviously there are probably 3 or 4 units that you're probably trying to fit in most of your armies, let's face it, fire dragons. But other than that,
if you can buy them,
if you can find them, but other than that, it's actually there's a nice variety in terms of how it's built, whether you want to go jet bikes or race and that sort of, or harlequins and that sort of thing. They are all viable, they are all usable, and they were all, if used well, could be a pain in the ass. But they all have bad matchups. So coming from that aspect, I can get that quite often they're a bit of a feels bad army. I think, I hear on the internet at the moment there's a huge amount of chatter about Ynnari, because obviously if you get it wrong into Ynnari, they are utter bullshit. If you don't play around their tricks, or you don't do the right things into them, you're like, how is this fair? What do you mean you're just moving all this distance at the end of my shooting phase? What do you mean the incarns just suddenly appeared? What do you mean you got fights first? Like they've just got. What do you mean you've sticky that objective? There's actually nothing I could have done there. You were always going to beat me on primary. And I can see that creating a lot of feels bad situations for a lot of like the middle tables. But I also think that what we're seeing from the current data is actually they're not overtuned at all. They just run at them and they do just die. So yeah, very curious to see how that goes. But yeah, I put them in at the top of B tier. Right, Rob, we have got 5 left, and there's 4 of us. That's exciting, isn't it? So, Rob, who are you going to go for?
Let's go for World Eaters.
Nice.
Yes.
So downside, their model range is what? It's 7 kits or so, probably.
Yeah.
Which is a downside for you're not going to have variety in your army, but also it means you buy 3 of each of them and you have every army possible.
Yep.
So it's accessible. It's again a single phase army like Tau, so that's kind of a downside because you are just playing in one phase of the game. I do think the combat phase is, if you are going to be playing in one phase, learn the combat phase because you have to get your movement right, and you have to get your combat, and you have to get all your staging right. You're not just relying on dice. Mm-hmm. So I think that's a good thing for learning the game, but also when you're learning the game, it's not fun just trying to make charges and going, I'm going to try and make this 8-inch charge. Oh, I rolled a 7, re-rolled, and my unit just dies now. Yeah. That's just not fun for you. And the models are pretty cool, aren't they? Though.
Yeah. It's a new range, right?
Yeah,
so
it's just all new models.
A lot of good stuff.
Yeah. So I'm actually not too sure. I think they will be probably top of C for me. Let's go below guard, just below guard.
Just below guard.
Yeah.
Okay, right.
I think it's fun. You can just run them at people.
Yeah.
And you're encouraged to do that in the rule set. Like, yeah.
Very nice. And as we approach this final bit, thank you for everyone who's been watching. Please do give this video a like. It helps the wonderful algorithm gods, as everyone's pointing out in the chat. Say, look, these guys are popular. They must be really cool. Oh, what's the best army to collect? I'm new to 40k. I want to know what the best army to collect is. Who's that handsome host of the show. Wow, I would love these guys. I want to give them money. So could we all please do that? Anyway, we're nearly there. Alex, what are you thinking?
Gonna take the Blood Angels.
Piss off, Scrivo. Nice, like it.
And
he's now going to take Grey Knights, so thanks.
Yep. So yes, partially because yes, Scrivo would have liked to do it, but also they're very good to paint and play. They got a huge amount of lore in them. Mm-hmm. The models are brand new. You know you're going to get supported for a long time. I'm debating whether that's an A tier or an S tier. The problem with an S tier is that you are still got the same Space Marine problem. There is a huge number of data sheets to master. You're going to be collecting it forever. And it's what we've just discussed. So I do think it drops it, but right to the top of A tier.
Right to Blood Angels, right at the top of A tier.
Also, going fast and punching things is just fun.
They are fun.
Supported by good guns, which is what World Eaters struggle a little bit, because a lot of Skulls is not the same as a bunch of Space Marine tanks, right?
Yeah. As someone who's recently started collecting a Blood Angels army, I am enjoying it, and I think they do appeal because they can shoot and they can fight, but they lean into the fighting, which is obviously a very powerful phase of the game, but they can do the shooting as well. So, absolutely. Right, Mr. Scrivo, what are you going for?
So there is, in the lore, a Chaos Space Marine Legion that unfortunately did something quite defining to themselves in the lore, where they became dust in suits. So as a result, there is not much ability to go, right, we're going to make some new units with these guys. They could go down the route of making like demonic half-breed sorcerer people things, but they've never gone that way. So unfortunately, Thousand Sons have a very small selection of units. Traditionally in the game are either a bit too overcooked or a little bit too complicated that even if they are really good, people can't play it because they need to have several PhDs or a law degree to understand all the terminology. And it's a silly amount of gold trim and the alternating color bars on the helmets. It's not ideal for a new player. Mm-hmm. The amount of times I've seen people with half-painted armies of it because they went, that will do, tells me that it's not an enjoyable project unless you are literally a masochist. And if that's the case, you probably should be playing Drukhari. So I personally think they are somewhere in the middle of D tier, probably above Imperial Agents, because at least they're a playable, fully formed army, even if it is about 4 data sheets.
Okay. I think, as you say, for someone who's like that average level of player, you've got to be very passionate about liking ancient Egypt, basically.
If you don't like Zangors, you've got half your armies not there.
Yeah. Right. Well, obviously, I'm going to go for Grey Knights for all my long-term followers from I Am the Hammer. So Grey Knights, interesting one. They have some of the coolest lore in the entire universe. They're so cool. They've got some great novels, quite a few novels actually. If you're a Grey Knight fan, make sure you read the Grey Knight Omnibus. That first book I've read like 8 times. It's amazing. They have a reasonably easy color scheme to paint. Obviously, you can make it quite pretty, and they can be painted reasonably well. But unless you're an incredible painter, it's hard to make them look good, right? You can make them look quite nice, but you can also just slap lead belcher and wash over, and they're functionable. In terms of easy to collect, if you buy 3 combat patrols, you essentially have 2,000 points of an army, and you could take that to a tournament and do quite well with it. They have some forgiveness in as much as the whole army is a 2-up save, and they can run around everywhere. And movement, as we know, is king in the game, and they are the ultimate army for doing that. Their output is above middling. Their resilience is slightly above middling. Their fundamental issue is the lack of units. You lose a unit and it really, really hurts. And you know that. Therefore, although you might feel like they're a bit more forgiving, actually, you get to turn 3, and if you've lost a unit a turn, and you're at the end of turn 3, and you're like, I don't really have much stuff left because you've probably lost half your army, and that's quite brutal. So I would always recommend them just because I think they're a really fun army. but I wouldn't recommend them to a beginner player. I think they're probably an army that you need lots of reps to start to get that enjoyment from, because it's all about being able to pick a certain part of the board and hammer that side, and that requires quite a lot of practice, and you need to understand the matchups. You need to understand when you can push and when you can't. If you're not playing that often, it's probably not that great an army. So I'm going to put them near the bottom of C tier. I'm in the middle of C tier, actually, because I think they are quite easily accessible, but I think you might struggle if you're not playing them that often.
They've got that one danger piece to them as well. That they've had 2 new character models in the last 10 years, and they're probably the oldest Space Marine range as a whole. Yeah. So they feel like they're on borrowed time for these models being current, at least.
Yeah, I can only conjecture on random internet rumors. As we said, we do have literally no idea, but the current internet rumors that I have most recently heard are that when the book comes out, Dread Knights are getting a upgrade sprue. Who knows what that is? And they're getting a range refresh in 11th edition. Those are the random rumors I've heard. Obviously,
and maybe a kill team is the thing I'm hearing.
Yeah, so who knows? But all I know is that when Grey Knights get slightly bigger Space Marine models, they're going to look so good.
I can't wait. It's what's held me back with them at the moment, is the whole uncertainty. I'm like, as soon as I finish painting the army, that's when the range gets refreshed, and I know
people do Primaris like conversion type ones, like real true scale Grey Knights. So they look sick. Right, is anyone passionate enough about Black Templars?
No.
Don't all rush at once.
They're great for making Dark Angels with.
Yeah.
Got a lot of character, right? Like people like the knightly theme of Dark Angels. Black Templars have that character too. They have at points been that niche, broken aspect of Space Marines just because of their wordings or whatever. Painting black power armor sucks ass.
The characters are amazing, though, aren't they? Like the lore behind the characters, the models are great. But outside of that, they have like 2 data sheets.
Are they worse than Space Wolves?
I think they are, because there's also a really horrible connotation with their iconography that makes you look like you might be slightly less open and forgiving
on a crusade.
People that are different. Yeah, it's a bit of an ick.
Should we go bottom of C tier, or do you want to put them in D tier?
So.
Bottom of C tier. Excellent.
They're definitely better than playing Imperial Knights.
Okay. So before we go through the final list, plot twist. I'm going to give you all one choice, one army you are allowed to move where you disagreed with Scrivo, or let's say someone else, but probably
all of my stuff's going to D tier. Thanks.
So you're not allowed to move an army that's already been moved as well. Okay,
nice.
So you can't just have one army yo-yoing around. So have a think. I'll give you 30 seconds. Have a think. One army that you've got to either shovel it. You can't just like twitch it one space on the bloody tier list. You need to either go up or down a rung or go from one end to the other. Let's be controversial here. And whilst our lovely folks...
List.
Pardon?
Can we drop things off the bottom of the list?
Just delete the army.
Chaos Demons is already happening too, right?
But in the meantime, whilst our lovely folk think, just make sure you have liked this video. Go do it right now. I'm going to wait for you. Yes, you. Go like that video, Ed Watts. Go like it. Go on, do it. I'm checking the likes right now. How many likes has this video?
It's gone down, Chris. What are you doing?
Damn it! Currently, this video has 14 likes. That is pathetic. But
there's 47 of you watching.
Oh, it just went up 15. Oh, just went up 16. There we are. We've got some true fans here. Thank you very much.
Guys, everyone was right when they said you have to tell the audience to hit like, subscribe. Otherwise 17. They don't do it.
There we go.
Because I forget. I'll be watching a video and I'll be too busy laughing, going, they know nothing. And I forget to hit the like.
Yeah.
And that was last week when I was watching.
I mean, I
was on the show. Shit.
This has had nearly 50 people the whole time, and it's only got 17 likes. So either you don't like us or you're lazy. Which one is it, guys? Anyway, these people have had... where are Orks? Orks are near the bottom end of C tier. Let us know how wrong Scrivo is, Paddy Mick. Right. Let's go with Rob. Which army have you disagreed with, and where would you like to move it to?
I think I want Necrons in S tier.
Okay, cool. Why?
Because they are so accessible and there's so many builds for them.
Yep.
And they're just they're just all around. The lore's a bit boring, but I think they tick every other box.
Okay, sounds good to me. Cool. You're not allowed to argue back, Alex. I'm afraid that's how this works.
Democracy.
Yeah, this is not that sort of democracy. Alex, what do you think?
I think I'm going to take the Guardsman up to around the middle of B tier.
Yep.
I think there is a wide range of play styles. I think you've got so much lore, and I think everyone does enjoy going that style of what if the regular people made an army. And with the paint styles, you can go a number of ways with it. You don't just have to paint Cadians. They have some upgrade kits. If you look for third party, you have a lot of ways to customize everything as well.
Nice. Yeah, that's fair. That's entirely fair enough. Middle of B, somewhere between. Oh, you know what? This becomes just above.
Oh, I knew you were going to do that.
Anyway, Scrivo, over to you, mate. Would you like to?
I think, based on the logic of why Death Guard got placed where they are placed, I think World Eaters should be up there.
Okay.
Because they don't have the shooting, but their combat completely outweighs that shooting. And I think if you're trying to learn an army, it's really helpful sometimes just to focus on one phase and doing that really well. And no one wants to do the most feels bad thing is being shot at. If you're having a combat, it's banter, right? Everyone gets to swing. It's good fun. So I think they should be there somewhere near the Death Guard, maybe in front of the Guard, because I personally think they're more interesting because blood for the Blood God. Am I right?
Absolutely.
You can do that with your Guardsmen.
What, fix bayonets?
There's a lot
and drink some
blood
recaf. And
You'll get a lot of blood out of them.
Watch our last Thursday's stream. There was a lot of Guardsmen dying.
Yeah. I've got to pick one. And you know what? I mean, obviously all of my choices are perfect. I definitely...
Nice.
I would have moved the Guardsman. The only one that I think maybe... Well, there's two, I think, potentially Orks. Could go to maybe the top of C tier or the bottom of B tier. Or Tyranids.
I did Paddy.
Tyranids could potentially nudge up to 80. I think they've got a lot of wonderful options. They've got a lot of depth to their force. They've always there's something about them. I think a lot of people are just interested in that vibe. They're quite classic 40k, right? So I think they appeal to a lot of people. They can be shooty, they can be fighty, they've got tricks. They always have they just do everything quite well. So I'm gonna whiz them all the way. I think they're slightly more forgiving than Eldar, so I'm gonna whiz them to the top of B tier.
I will say that about 5-10 minutes ago you said you had to move the tier.
No. I said, or you could go from one end to the other. And as I am the podcast host, I am always right. Paddy Mix says, get the boys up to A tier. Wow. The Orc boys up to A tier. Well, he really thinks you're an idiot, Scrivo, doesn't he?
Well, I am an idiot because I have about 25,000 points of Orcs, and it's never enough. And that to me tells you that the army is not good for collecting. Or maybe it is good for collecting, just not playing.
Yeah. Drukhari says, where do hope Emperor's Child will enter this list? So where do we think Emperor Children? You'd imagine it's going to be around the Death Guard World Eaters area, would we?
I hope so, but from what rules have kind of been leaking through, they do look a little bit kind of situational, so I think we'll have to see how it lands on the tabletop.
They seem like asterisk.
Yeah.
They seem like tricksy World Eaters.
Yeah. And if you don't play the tricksy well, like as we've been saying with the elves, it can fall down. So that makes sense.
You see where these T-Sons ended up with a small model range and needing to keep track of a lot of things.
Yeah.
That being said, the lure of exciting new pretty models is certainly intoxicating, as half of 6++ will be able to tell you. Because we've suddenly developed a lot of Emperor's Children mains. So watch this space, as none of them, and Lee Churchwood
counts.
Lee Churchwood counts. I'm not sure. Connor's got a bet with Tom that he's going to play them for the entirety of the next UKTC season.
I like that's been kept very low key. That I hadn't heard that.
No, they've got a bet on it. There's going to be a ceremony at LG2, whoever wins.
Yeah, an actual ceremony. God. We're going to hijack Zach's speech.
Does that mean Tom has to stick to an army?
No, Connor.
Connor does.
If it's Tom, I'm like, Tom's losing that, because that guy cannot sit still.
I don't know if Connor's going to stick to him. We'll find out. He's confident. So, our definitive tier list. So if you're just tuning in, then where were you? But anyway, what we've just done is we have ranked the armies for how are they the best army to collect. So if you are wanting to collect, so we should shout out Deathwatch. We just don't have the picture there because Scrivo sucks.
No, because they're under Imperial agents technically. Because that's their codex.
Imperial agents. Very quickly,
for now.
What tier? One word or one letter? What tier would you put Deathwatch in?
C.
Alex.
C.
Scrivo.
I would say B at the moment.
Cool. C tier it is. Excellent. So our final tier list for those of you who are interested. In D tier, we have Imperial Knights, Admech, Thousand Sons, Imperial Agents, Drukhari, Daemons, and GSC. These are armies you should never collect.
Are they just all of Tom's armies? They are.
Tom collects Thousand Sons, Drukhari, and GSC. Yes, you are correct.
Yeah. And Votann's not far ahead.
Yeah, he has a Daemons army too, I think.
Yeah, he has Nurgle, right?
Yeah.
In C tier, so these are ones you could potentially think about collecting, but they're probably not going to be great, especially if you don't play that often. We've got Tau, Grey Knights, Custodes, Sisters, Orks, Votann, and Black Templars. B tier, probably a pretty good shout for collecting an army, but there are going to be some issues for you. We've got Tyranids, Aeldari, Death Guard, Wild Eaters, Imperial Guard or Astra Militarum, Dark Angels, Space Wolves, and Chaos Knights. In A tier, we have armies which are a great shout to start playing with. Really diverse here. We've got Blood Angels and Space Marines. And then finally, if you're new to the game or you just want a new army and I really don't know who I should collect, well, there are two standout options for you. We have Chaos Space Marines and we have Necrons. Are we happy with this tier list, guys?
No.
Good. Have we solved Warhammer 40k for all people? Have we just suddenly made their life?
Yeah,
I'm pretty
absolutely.
Sure that's a pretty great job there. I mean, you can't really fault us. We have absolutely nailed this. And just so you know, we've got 25 likes on this video at the moment. So there we go. Right, it's time for some quickfire podcast questions, and then we will love you and leave you. So let me just head over to the section on our Discord. If you're not a member of our Discord, Scrivo, pop up that link, good sir, in the chat. Because our Discord's blooming amazing. We are 3 members away from 700 people. That's pretty cool, isn't it? I would say. Where on earth are the podcast questions?
Start with
there we go.
Cat something.
Show tonight, blah, blah, blah. Cat something.
Yep.
How to convert I know what my opponent is going to do in broad strokes into a plan. Now, I'll be honest with you, Cat something. That is such a good question. I think we should probably save that for maybe a show.
Maybe next week.
Maybe next week, because if anyone has any ideas on other shows, just let us know. Maybe we'll slot it in. Maybe we're running out of ideas. Who knows? But yeah, so we're going to save that.
It's not another tier list.
Yeah, we need to not do a tier list. So that'd be good. Beanman says, "Where's Moth?" There wasn't actually an available tier because it's obviously above S,
and it's technically not released yet, so we cannot tier this unreleased. That's why Emperor's Children's not there either. So
yeah, fact. Red Covenant says, "What app are people using these days for list building? Battle Scribe is no longer being supported. 40k app is becoming more and more hidden by codex paywalls. New Recruit is gaining momentum. War Organ is looking very promising and much easier to use. Not heard of that one. Any others? List building is so important for the hobby as it helps new players find their first army and helps the rest of us decide what to commit pounds to next. So, what do you guys use to build your list?
I use my War Organ because that sounds like a euphemism.
Yeah, it does. And in the real world?
I use the 40k app because apparently I've got all the codexes. Because
you are in a 40.
I'm unhealthy.
Yeah, I use the app too. Obviously, it can potentially hold me back if I don't know my opponent's rules. But I'm not really one of those who's just like building lists for armies I don't own. Don't get me wrong, it is annoying. But yeah, there's always Wikipedia or 39.pro or whatever it is to help find rules. Alex, Rob, what do you use?
Yeah, I'm on the 40k app as well, and like you say, it's great for your own armies when you've got the book. It isn't getting to that stage where it's annoying, but you have other
especially when you want an agent.
Your opponent should have their stuff as well, so you should just be able to ask your opponent at any stage, "Can you show me?"
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I'm on the GW app too, and I use New Recruit if I'm using Battle Scribe, basically Yellow Scribe for TTS.
Yeah, New Recruit is good though. I know lots of people using that at the moment. And says, what do you think about GW's changes to the ITC? Excited? Don't care? Scriver, you're probably in a decent position to talk about this.
I think it's constructive changes. So historically, the ITC was a frontline gaming circuit. When Games Workshop took over that, I think it was a couple of years ago now, they didn't really change anything. So it was very much weighted so that things like the end of the season was the LVO. You got more points for being at the LVO than if you actually won a super major of a smaller size, like not quite that tier. So it always felt a bit kind of like it was very much US centric. So they seem to be recalibrating it so that it definitely covers all the different tiers. And from my understanding is it used to be a bit more of it just went like the line went up. So the bigger the event, the more points, full stop. Mm-hmm. They're trying to adjust it so that there is kind of like bumps to it, but it's not just it just infinitely grows. So I feel like that's constructive because there's probably 2 tiers of tournaments you'll see kind of en masse, and it's like the 100-person event or the 24-person event. They're kind of like the 2 sweet spots of like, that's what you see a lot of events for that aren't super majors. So having those actually contribute healthy scores, I think will really help encourage people to want to keep track of their scores. Whilst if you're only going to super majors or you're specifically not going to super majors, you feel like you're left behind. Because I had that last year where I didn't really play any GTs. I was doing RTTs and my score looked awful. Mm-hmm. And that's a bit deflating when you feel like you're actually still trying to achieve something in the scoring sort of thing. But we'll have to see. I think it's constructive.
International as well, right?
Yeah.
Like a lot of the UK, US have these huge events that so many other places just cannot run.
Yes.
You can't run events that big in Australia just because of size of the country and the player base. It's just impossible.
Yeah. And smaller countries currently get punished for it as well. So if they can't host anything bigger than 24-player events, the world's rankings doesn't really give them a place to stand. So they're looking at, I think there was talk that they're doing it more about the country basis.
There was a regional ranking, wasn't there?
That's their plan for next year. They're trying to tier into that, but they're looking at kind of splitting countries constructively. Because obviously you don't just split America into like quarters and go, that'll do. So,
no, I think
it looks positive. So.
Yeah. The only thing I disagree with is the fact that, in fact, 60-player events are the ideal level of event. And we have one of those coming up on March the 15th and 16th at Barnsley. And if you are interested in attending our incredible event, then you can find all information on the Facebook event on our Facebook page. Thank you. Right, let's see. Next one. Raptor Jack, explain the difference between all terrain types and how that affects list building. This would help us. I don't know. I mean, again, I would hate to answer that question and not be able to do it justice. I think there are things.
That's a show.
I think that is a show, or actually it's a video series, because then we can put up like diagrams and that sort of thing, but we could definitely do that on a show. It's just not great for podcast listeners. They certainly do have identities. And I just don't want to not do that question justice in a very short amount of time. So we will come to that in some form or the other, Jack. Okay, here we go. Slops, what's your take on jumping on a newly released army versus an established one? Votann or World Eaters or Emperor's Children, for example, compared to Tyranids or Death Guard. How much money has Tom put aside for new Emperor's Children? At least the value of the new box, I think it would be fair to probably say.
Yeah.
So, what's your take? New army or established one? Let's say I said to you guys, I'm going to give you £500 each. I want you to buy a new army and do a video series on it. Where does your mind jump? Would you rather have a new army that's come out recently, or would you rather have one of the big established armies? What are you thinking?
My mind goes straight to what would I be happy painting, and because it's a new army is a big time investment, and if you're not happy painting, so if you go, you know what, this new army has awesome models, great, or if someone said you have to paint a firstborn Marine army, I would hate it.
Yeah. I think we've got a tier list on the screen that shows that realistically it's a slightly deeper army that we feel is a better choice.
Yep. 100%. Cool. Nailed it. Juicy says, what are your thoughts on using proxies so that one faction looks like another? Warp spiders? What are those? These are Tempestus Arachnus.
As long as it's clear, it's fine. The minute it's on different size bases or it's unclear what the models are meant to be, when you're playing, especially an event game, and you're spending half the time going, what's that model again? What's that? That's not fair. That I get the creativity, but it needs to be clear.
It needs to be clear for your opponent, I think. Yeah. More so than yourself. Your opponent needs to know, this is a melter gun, this is a flamer, this is my elite infantry, this is my basic infantry, this tank is one of these tanks, this one is a different one. If your opponent cannot tell that after your 2-minute introduction for the rest of the game, then your conversion is not up to standard. Your proxy is not good enough for the game, realistically.
It's rough, isn't it? Like, you see some people do these incredible things, but there is part of me like, well, I don't know what those models are. I mean, a different version of that is I played some with the Sisters of Battle Army where they were all painted in a ghost scheme. Cool, that's great. I have literally no idea what your different units are. And it was actually really hard to like kind of, and he was obviously really clear and constantly like, yeah, this was this and this, that. And but it actually just becomes quite hard, especially one fly when you're trying to think about your game plan and that sort of thing. So definitely think about your opponent for sure.
I think also if it's a hobby army and not a gaming army, then go to town, right?
Yes.
We've come from this kind of competitive tournament type standpoint. If you're actually just going down your local club, you want to display it, put it in for a best painted, go to town, enjoy it.
If you want to put a giant Tau gun on the back of a dragon, it's probably quite clear what it is, and it looks freaking cool.
Yeah. If you want to play one army competitively, so just one, is an army with a big model range, Space Marines, Eldar, Imperial Guard, better or worse than an army with a smaller model range like Votann, World Eaters, or Sisters? Easier to have all the units painted and ready to go when meta shifts with a small army, and perhaps better understanding of what each unit does in a small army compared to a big army. Discuss in small groups.
So I've got a bit of experience with this with my Drukhari then, because they have a very small model range and I can effectively run any list that I can. And I am so bored of them because you're running the same data sheets with slightly different rules and it just gets very samey. So I'd much rather have a huge range that I'm going to have to keep investing in and buying than be stuck with the same 12 data sheets.
It took me 2 editions to get bored of my Orks because of that depth.
I think it also just gives you somewhere to go, right? If you have more options, you can just keep hobbying. You're not going to be done in a year.
Yeah. I mean, I can speak from like my Grey Knight perspective because obviously they don't have a huge wide range. All it took was I was getting bored of them, and all it took was Warpbane, and suddenly there were just a few little list building adjustments that were now interesting to me. But it was basically getting a new rule set is what Warpbane did for Grey Knights. It now meant, you can actually kill stuff and stop running away quite as much. So it did transform things, but that's quite a rarity, that level of change. I think you can just end up getting, if you're only going to play one army, you're just, if you haven't got many models, you're just potentially going to get stuck. And then there are definitely going to be times where you're like, well, I don't really want to be playing this army, because I'm not able to try out different things and different combos. I've only got a few data sheets. And that was from Asteran. John C., I guess the obvious question is, what do you do with models that no longer have a place in your codex? Hey, Scrivo, hashtag Scrigoth.
So I've got an entire really useful box in my garage full of attack bikes and land speeders. So that's what happens to them. They sit in my garage.
Store
and
them
I
in the
forget about
garage.
them.
Yeah.
And eventually I'll sell them when I get over it, because people do still buy old models, because some people do like to play old editions.
Yep. So sell them is one answer. Anyone do anything else with their old stuff?
Depends on the model, depends on the time you've invested into it. Like, I think if you have put a lot of time into, say, a character model that you've painted real nice, you just have to use it as a display piece. If it is just a standard squad, it's not really got value to you anymore.
Yep.
Absolutely. Okay. Oh, here we go. If you were starting now as a complete beginner, or recommending to someone else who's starting as a complete beginner, which army would you choose?
GSC.
Okay, so the worst army to collect. Yeah.
They're Necrons, isn't it? It's just Necrons for me.
Yeah. Okay.
There's a whole tier list in front of us there.
Screw it.
For me, it's quite easy. It's one of whatever two armies are in the starter sets, because they are really good for learning the basics of the game, especially if it's a kid. Give them some Tyranids, give them some Space Marines. It's straightforward to build and paint. It doesn't mean it's going to be a great army for them, necessarily, but it gets them started. So I'd say start with them, but dip your toes in, don't buy a whole army, and then once you've learned how the game works, make that decision.
Yes. Alex?
I think there's a bit more nuance. If you're brand new, there's no point giving someone Necrons if that's not what they like. You need to probably get a couple of questions in of what sort of lore are they after? Are they after actually more straight, I'm going into this to play competitively? Are they going to want to do a lot of the hobby work or just get something to the tabletop? It's probably Necrons as the initial one. There's a good bit of everything there, but I think any of those kind of top four that we've put is a good shout.
Yep. For me personally, I'd probably go with Guard, because I really like the new Krieg models. I like the Krieg models so much so that I went and bought and pre-ordered and got the Deathcore Krieg box. And then I looked at myself in the mirror and went, come on, mate, let's be realistic. And because I'm so nice, I'm actually putting it into the 6++ prize draw, which we'll be doing, in which half our money goes to charity and half our money goes to running our next event. And so that box could be yours for a very, very small amount of money. So if you're interested in coming to our event, it's on March the 15th and 16th, and you can find out all the information that you need on the Facebook event. There's lots of people who've donated some incredible things. Really, really kind of them. Right. Nearly there. Does available online content for your army affect your choice? Now, I did refer to this question earlier. I.e., is it easier to learn or otherwise better as an army? There are a bunch of content creators using and talking about it.
I would hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's an easy trap to fall into, right? That you find someone, you're like, they chat, they talk the good talk. This sounds really encouraging. I don't know much about this army. I'm going to listen to what they say. Maybe they don't. They are usually just some chump on the internet, just like we are, telling you that we are the right. We have. But obviously, that isn't necessarily the case. Everything is obviously always opinion based, so there is a trap there. However, I think most of us are switched on enough to be able to work out. And I think what we notice as a channel is that when we've produced a lot of subject specific or army specific content, it becomes pretty popular and builds a bit of a following. Tom obviously did a lot of Drukhari stuff and GSC stuff, which brought a lot of people interested in those armies across. Grey Knight players have really liked the I Am the Hammer series. Obviously, Scrivo's videos about Dark Angels are by far our most popular videos. Our most popular 2 or 3 videos are all Scrivo's Dark Angels ones. So, hello to all you Dark Angels fans out there. Thank you for joining us.
Don't talk to him.
So, I think it's obviously there's a lot of interest out there. And I know for me personally, if I'm trying to get when I was started to get interested in Blood Angels, there's BA Commander who is, you go, they got lots of subscribers, they got lots of views, let's listen to a video. It sounds like he knows what he's talking about, and it certainly can fast track your interest in something and helps you get to grip with it a lot quicker than trying to work it out yourself. Obviously, you need to get the models on the tabletop to start understanding an army and playing it and working out how it works for you. Case in point, last week I played a coaching game using Ynnari. I built a list of all the MSUE stuff. I played it. You know what? I really did not like having 16 units, 17 units. It's so different to Grey Knights. I just found that hard to do. I immediately knew that I wanted to take out some of those units and have a couple of chunkier things in there. Sometimes you just have to do that. You can't just be told by a man on the internet what you should take. But that being said, it will really fast track your progress.
Especially if it's a deep army, right? Knowing the good starting points. If you have to pick through 100 data sheets and someone says, here's the top 15, it means you're not buying the other ones first and making that mistake.
All spec tactics do those sort of things. And you see on Facebook groups, hi guys, I'm looking to get into Aeldari. What are the must-have units that I should buy? And the post I saw the other day was say for Necrons. It's like, if I start a Necron, what can you give me 3 units I should definitely build and paint whilst I get my head around the codex or whatever. Maybe that's a video series we need to do.
I've done one for Orks that's like that.
Yeah, just like 3
top
units.
5 units.
It could be like a YouTube short. Like
and
3 units.
I think when I got into it, Scary was the person with Drukhari, and his video, I think it's still from 8th edition, the one he did on what are the units, and it still holds up because he didn't go into the rules. He went, this is generally what they do, and they still generally do those things.
That's smart.
Yeah.
Well, so we're planning ideas live on air. This is the sort of depth that we put into our ideas for videos. And finally, George Hutley literally wrote this at 10 p.m. I feel like we are due what is the least valuable 40k tier list?
I've got a good tier list we could do, which is podcast questions tier list. And I think that might be in the D tier. George.
To be fair, we should take. Well, we shouldn't do this, but just start going through other channels' tier lists and ranking them.
We could just do it. We could just do content creator tier lists, right? That's completely
imagine
healthy
doing
and
a
nice,
content creator tier list. Who on earth?
Yeah, who'd do that?
Some crazy folk. And on that bombshell, this has been 6++. This has been a lot of fun. Thank you to the chat. We've had lots of you getting involved. You're always a delight. You're the thing that keeps us ticking over. We love you very much. And just remember, guys, we've got a tournament in March, 15th, 16th, and we'd love to see you there. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.